such a nightmare getting it. Just disappeared. I don't know why it does this. Why does, when you make a booking, an appointment through Outlook, you click on it and you accept it, and then it vanishes. It
Yeah.
just goes into the ether, and I've known it do that and go into the deleted box. But this time it went into my spam, and I had no idea. I was just in desperation. I looked in the spam yesterday, I think it was, and found everything. And I'm just like, I don't understand why it even deletes those messages. Why?
Oh, I honestly, I cannot help you with it. It's like a game. Microsoft Teams is like a game. Every day is different. That you've been doing the same thing every day, and you come to it, and something's disappeared, or you can't get in, and you think, "Well, I've just been in. What's going
Yeah,
on?"
yeah.
So it's crazy. Anyway, so we were just for our lovely viewers, we were just having the red hair talk because obviously it's
Yeah.
the in colour for us both and has been for some time. I was just saying how much it suits Janet. She looks great. So how are you, and how have you been, and what is happening in your world? So you've got a new
Yeah,
placement, and tell
yeah.
me, tell me.
Yeah, I'm good. A little bit shell shocked after my first week back on placement. After a little while, the old Achilles tendons are a little bit tight from lots of walking about, but I'll get used to it, I suppose, in the next 4 weeks. I'm on a general medical ward now that has a bit of a specialism in diabetes, so that's really good. Lots of lovely leg ulcers and various diabetes related conditions. So I'm learning a lot there. That's really great. Yeah, just generally, I can't believe we're at the end of May now. This means I am now officially almost halfway through my nursing degree, because we are the January cohort. So we're very nearly halfway through year two. I'm told year two is the hardest of the 3 years, and I can believe it. But I've survived so far. Just waiting on a load of results coming through from a few assignments that we handed in. So I've got no nails, of course. And yes,
Why
just
have you
really
got no
excited.
nails?
Because I'm biting them because I'm nervous.
Oh, Janet! What, through your assessments?
Yeah. Because we do kind of a round of 3 assignments, and then later on we've got another round of 3 assignments. And it feels a bit like that's your lot. You've just got 2 chances to get through the year. So yeah, it is quite nerve-wracking, feeling like this is half of my assessments for this year. So and obviously you want to do well, and I think I will pass. But you still at 3 o'clock in the morning, you still have those wild moments, don't you,
Yeah, of course.
where
Yeah.
it occurs to you that maybe you won't pass, maybe you won't pass at all, and and it's just those dark moments really that you've got to kind of have a word with yourself and say, pull yourself together, love. You're gonna be
Yes.
fine.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. What's the most recent assignment that you've had to do then? What was that about?
It was quite an interesting one that we had to do a SWAY presentation, which is a glorious way to present, because it makes everything look, it's a bit like Technicolor. You take your bog standard boring essay and you put it in a SWAY and it looks amazing because you put photographs in and stuff.
What are you saying? A sway?
SWAY, it's a Microsoft product,
I,
not very
I
well
have not.
known.
I
It,
have never
yeah,
heard of it.
yeah. Oh, if you've got a Microsoft computer, you'll be able to get it. You'll be able to download it off the internet. If you Google Microsoft Sway, it's free. And it's a bit like PowerPoint in that it's all kind of, you can put photos in, you can put videos in, you embed stuff. It just makes everything look very glamorous. It's a different way of presenting to PowerPoint, where you've got kind of slides. Sways can be a little bit more slick, and it is quite good fun. And I did mine actually on end of life care. And I really loved doing that project. It was a real journey of discovery. I learned a lot about the evidence base of why we do what makes end of life care really great. Has got a very strong evidence base now, and of course that's one of the key themes that they're teaching us on my degree, is that if you're going to be a good nurse, you need to know your evidence base, and I'm loving that angle on things, so that when somebody says, why are you doing it that way, you don't say, well, because a nurse told me to, or because it's the way it's always been done. You say it's because the evidence tells us that this is the best way to do it.
So good. Yeah.
And I'm
I mean,
loving
that just gives so much kudos and impact to that thing, doesn't it? Because it's like you've kind of belt and braced it. That's so good. So how did you use the sways for the end of life essay? What did you? That was your most recent kind of
So you can put voice recordings in there, which we were asked to do as part of the project. But then you're using the imagery to highlight your key messages. So in lots of ways, a lot of years ago, I did a lot of study around the way people learn in different ways. So you get your literary learners, which I am definitely one of them, but you also get your auditory learners. So if the person listening to this is really tuned into, if they memorise things more by auditory methods, then they're going to pick up on what you're saying in the auditory way. But then you've also got imagery as well, and creating mind maps and stuff, that you can do all that in Sway.
So good.
Your images are kind of backing up your key messages, and of course you're highlighting just the key phrase that you want to get the listener really tuned into.
Yeah, that's I love the way that it's so creative. I mean, if you make that comparison between that and a, I don't know, 3,000 word document.
Yeah.
So, I mean, from what you've just told me, and you haven't even talked about the content, what in your mind makes you think that you wouldn't pass that?
No, nothing at all. It's just the demon on my shoulder at 3 o'clock in the morning.
You just need to go.
Yes. The one that likes to remind me that I'm not good enough. With him, her, it. We all have those moments, don't we, where there's just that little, when you feel like an imposter in your own life, and I suppose it's kind of healthy in a way, but the healthy part is being able to say, yes, I know you're there. I know you're keeping me on my toes to always perform at my best. But actually now you're getting out of hand, so go away and let me sleep.
Perfect. I love that. Yeah, they say that a lot. I mean, another way of putting it is, that monkey mind that sits on your shoulder also likes to take over in the driving seat when you're driving, which is very annoying, obviously, because, they might have the map and they might be thinking, well, I know the best way to go, but you're the one that's driving. So like you say, the best thing to do is stop the car, get out, put them in the back seat, put the seatbelt on and tell them not to move.
Can you not just leave them on the edge of the motorway?
Yeah, they're gonna find a way back. They're gonna find a way back. So like you're so right. You've got to like deal with it head on. They're not going anywhere. It's just that they need to know what to do. I mean, some people carry a suitcase in the back of the car and put them in that, in the boot.
Yeah.
So they're still on board, but they haven't got any sway, to use the word sway. So that's really good. Oh no, that sounds fantastic. Thank you for letting me know about that. That could be a life-changing thing in itself. I've not even heard of it. It's probably because I work on Apple all the time, but I'm sure there's probably a version, no doubt. no doubt.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, I think from I was talking about how it is from the watcher's point of view, but of course from the creator's point of view as well. I think probably the reason why it's been incorporated into our course is because they do want to allow students to be able to express themselves in other ways. And again, if you're not a visual learner, then it doesn't come naturally to present all your work in essays. So they're allowing people to tap into their own creativity in other
I
ways.
love that. Love that. And is there a component where they teach you how to use it, or is it quite intuitive? Does
Yeah,
it
it is a very intuitive program. There's lots of YouTubes out there for it, and Microsoft have done a lot of stuff. But actually, it's definitely a program that the more you engage with it, the more you learn what you can do with it. It's kind of almost as though they didn't write a manual for it, because again, it's part of the way that if you're not a visual learner, you're not going to read the manual. You know, you're
Yeah,
going to want to play around with the
yeah,
program to find out what
absolutely.
it can do for you.
Yeah.
And although that can be quite frustrating for people who do like to read manuals, like me,
Oh gosh,
I
no.
can see that that actually, if you're the kind of person who puts down the instructions on your flat pack furniture and just says, "I'm going to put it together myself," then you're going to love Sway, because you will just find out what it can do just from pressing buttons.
Yeah, I'm sold already. As soon as we get off the call, I'm just going to look into it because I think that's just wonderful. I can see lots of different applications for it in lots of cool ways. So brilliant. Okay, so today I thought we would kind of dance around the concept of career development and start. You mentioned at the beginning of the call that you cannot believe that you're halfway through, and its time is just going,
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
So what I'd like to do is like to kind of like tap into your unusual background, which I think is amazing, that brings you to where you are today and the wonderful person that you are. And the reason I mention that is obviously because within that there's a little bit of career development. So I'd like to just kind of find out how that sits with you when you are looking at your own. And obviously it's quite a big part of what I do in my work as well. So I think between us, we might be able to come up with like a pathway forward. But I'd obviously be just really interested to know what your thoughts are and if they've changed, because you're human and you're kind of just taking in so much information on a daily basis that it's going to inform your choices moving forward, and those could change on a sixpence. So
Yeah.
there's a lot there, but let's just start off. So tell me a little bit about your own background in career development.
Right, so as you know, we've talked about this a lot. I knew that I wanted to be a nurse when I was around about 16, 18, but I also knew that I wasn't ready. And so the question was, what do I do then that is something that I feel that is a good alternative, but that I'm capable of doing at that point in time? So I did my first degree at Plymouth in sociology and politics. I actually started on a social work degree at Plymouth, and I did the first year, and I realised that that wasn't for me either, that social work was not going to be a good route for me. And so I was able just to jump onto a generic degree from the first year there, which I carried on with my sociology and my politics. And when I was in the third year of that's when obviously you're gonna fall off the edge of this cliff at some point. You're gonna finish this degree. What you're gonna do? And so I was looking around, and the whole thing about careers was just fascinating to me. So I decided that I would train as a careers advisor. Um, and so that was a great choice, because that allowed me to still be discovering, still challenging myself about what career did I want, and still learning about other careers, and still dealing with all those questions of what does it mean to have a rewarding career, and all of that stuff. But it was also a way to help people too. Obviously I wanted to be a nurse because I wanted to be useful to people. And so the careers advice seemed a great way to still be useful to people while still trying to find the answers myself about what did I want out of my life. So I set off on that route, and I stayed on that route for kind of 10, 12 years.
Wow.
But what I realised in that time was that there are all sorts of other little branches I could go off into. Careers advice and careers education is very much connected to professional development. And I became a trainer for a while with the careers company that I worked for. So I was training other careers advisors and I was training teachers. And I loved that. And I went off into some community development roles as well outside of that careers company. I went and ran a miners' welfare education centre for a little while.
Wow.
But it was all still the key themes of personal development, personal growth, careers, advice, education. What jobs did people want? What jobs were available? What was going to make people feel fulfilled and satisfied with their lives? It was all still the same ball game to me. And it was only much later that I left that field and became a dog groomer. I don't fully understand that yet.
Okay.
But the overriding theme was really just to have more control over my day, my decisions, my income, and just to have a complete change, really.
Yeah.
A change is as good as a rest, they say, don't they?
Definitely. Yeah.
And when I got to that stage of making that decision, I just felt like I needed to have something that was very refreshing going on. And so I did that. But I've always kept the dog grooming as a part-time thing because it's quite strenuous. And I work from my garden, so it was easy to kind of fit the dog grooming around other things too. So I kept still dipping into things like joining the police. I joined the police as a civilian for 5 years. And after that was when I started thinking more along the hospitality lines. I'd bought 2 flats near the sea with some spare cash that I had, and I loved running those as holiday lets. And the holiday lets led me into the cafe business in the same town. And by that stage, we were up to that dreadful time, and that reset many people's lives, and it reset mine as well. And all the time through all of that stuff, every time I was coming towards a junction where things could possibly go in a different direction, I had nursing on the one side and I had other things on the other side. And I kept taking the other side, the other things, right up until that last junction when 2 years ago when we dealt with COVID, and finally I decided enough's enough. I'm not running away from this anymore. It's still there after 30 years. It's still there as an option, and I'm going to take it now. And that's what I did.
I just absolutely love this story. It's so powerful. I love the way, talking about the thing sitting on your shoulder, in a way, it was sitting on your shoulder, whispering in your ear very, very quietly for 30 years.
Yeah.
But like we've always said in our conversations, you bring so much to your role because of your experience. And every single facet of what you've done just adds such great quality of compassion and care with other people, and that ability to be able to communicate at any level. And I think, as we always said at the very beginning, you could wrap that up a little bit with wisdom as well, because age and experience. But then when we make the comparison between you doing that at your age and me doing it when I was 21, it's just so totally different, green and so kind of deer in the headlights type thing. Everything was, you know, it was all that whole thing of still even getting used to having left home, you know, and being in London. Oh God, as a nurse in the 80s, it all went very wrong. No, it didn't. No, it's fine. But you know what I mean? You know, there were so many things from different levels that I had never encountered before. But yeah, I mean, everybody brings something different, but you know, if when we make that comparison, if we were to put you and I alongside each other, you know, that the quality of what you bring is just so much denser, and so much, you know, there's so much there that's so good. So how do you apply your career development skills that you've learned to where you are now as a second year nurse? How does that inform your choices?
And I think probably because I have the resilience that it takes to, when that demon on our shoulders going to be a bit of a theme today, I think. Because when you're doing a course like this, we've spoken before about how I'm now at the point where I'm into new territory. It's not all stuff that I've done before. It's new things, so I'm learning all the time. But that's where you're out of your comfort zone and you're feeling the pressure a bit more. And I think probably, if I remember, that for any degree course, the most dangerous point is the middle of second year, because psychologically you've got as far to go as you've already come, and you're taking on new challenging themes that weren't there in the first year, but you need to get your head around them in order to move on to the third year. And I know that this is particularly true in nursing. Lots of people tell me anecdotally that the second year of a nursing degree is the hardest. Kind of by the time you get to third year, you're moving with momentum to the end point. But second year is a bit of a trudge really through evidence-based practice and hard concepts to get your head around. But equally, you might find yourself in placements that aren't familiar anymore. And so this is a really dangerous time to be losing people from the course.
I was just thinking that this is a potential kind of red flag for retaining people within the course.
Yeah.
How do you think your university and your tutors address that? What do they put in place to make sure that that doesn't happen and that people are comfortable?
There is the support that's always been there. They're very aware of where we are in the course. We all have our personal tutors, and we have links attached to the placements that are there with us all year. They're on hand whenever we need them. Equally, the staff in the hospital, we've got assessors and supervisors there too, who again they've been, a lot of them are quite new to nursing themselves. They might have only been qualified in the last 3-5 years, whatever. So they know what it's like to be students. So there is a lot of support around us. But going back to the question you asked earlier about what from my professional development is helping me, having had all those previous experiences, this is what's helping me now, is the wisdom to know that this is just a phase, you know, that we're just passing through this. And there are days where you feel like it wasn't a great day, and it could have gone better, and you can probably identify the reasons why. But for me, doing this now at my stage of life means that I know that there will be a tomorrow, that day will be better, that all of the tomorrows will add up to the end of this phase. And really getting through the next 6 months, once I've done that, the following 12 months of third year is just gonna fly. You know, I've done that. I've been on a third year of a degree program before. I know how busy that year is. And because you're not just concentrating on the here and now, that at this point in time, because you're at that midpoint, you feel a bit stuck, like you're in the middle of you're in the darkest part of the tunnel. There's only a dot of light at each end. Whereas as soon as you get into third year, that light is coming at you very quickly, and you're not only thinking about the here and now, but you're thinking about the future, because you're starting to plan your CV, and you're starting to look at job opportunities, and you're starting to prepare for interviews. So you've got an eye on the future, whereas where we are right now is very much about the here and now, and a lot of people struggle with that. Because you feel like you've not got momentum to go anywhere. And if you're not entirely satisfied with the here and now, then it's a difficult place to be.
Yeah, I hear you. I guess one of the good ways through this is to celebrate, actually, to use celebration in terms of achievement so far. I absolutely hear you that it's kind of not a resting place, but it's like you look behind you and you think, oh God, and you look ahead of you and you think, oh God. And it's that's an interesting concept. So do you think there are ways to achieve, not to achieve, to reward yourself and to pat yourself on the back for the achievements that you've made up to this point, that would springboard you and help that motivation to move forward?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think, like you say, you have to celebrate the fact that you're halfway through the course. You're not a newbie anymore. You've got some experience under our belts. We've already got 24 weeks of placement behind us, which is a lot.
Yes, it is.
And
Gosh.
when you start to actually break down what you're capable of doing in the day now, I love that feeling of when something isn't a mystery to me anymore. I was actually, this is going to be really boring now, but I was reading yesterday about blood gases. Because blood gases is one of those things that you hear them say it on Casualty in Holby City, order blood gases please, and you're like, oh, that sounds very detailed, I wonder what that's all about. Well, I know what it's all about, because I read about it yesterday. And just that, celebrating the fact that I now have knowledge about something like that. When you sit down as a student and someone says to you, do you know about this, and do you know about this, and do you know about this, if you can say that you know a little bit about all of those things, you can show to yourself that you're progressing.
Definitely.
And that's wonderful. The sense of achievement to say, well, a year and a half ago I had no nursing knowledge whatsoever, and now I've got 100 words in my head that weren't there before. So when they say on Casualty that someone's got some condition, I can turn to my husband and I can say, I know what that is. And
yeah. And then you have to do the winner's pose.
Exactly. If they say,
Because
oh, that patient's tachycardic, I know what that means.
Yeah.
And it's just lovely. And that's the progress that we're making. And that's what you forget when you've got a day when you feel like you're not progressing and you're not going anywhere and there's as much to do as you've already done. But when you can remind yourself that at this point in time, where you've got to is an immense distance travelled from where you started, then that's lovely. Because then you can say to yourself, well, how much more am I going to know by the end of this course? Tomorrow is another day where I will learn something that I didn't learn. One of my favourite phrases of all time is every day is a school day. Because when every day is not a school day, that's the point where we're not growing anymore and we're not developing.
Absolutely
and there's
agree
nothing
with you.
exciting.
Yeah, I love that too. I'm a lifelong learner. I'm constantly learning, constantly reading. And the only time that I won't be doing that is when I'm not here any longer. So, it's very important to me as well. So, yeah, no, that's wonderful. And I think holding on to that sense of achievement and celebrating, remembering to celebrate, the smallest wins, and you know, even the hardest day, you know, giving yourself something lovely over the weekend because you had quite a difficult week, but keeping that going, that's so good, so good. So I know you're halfway through and you've got lots of ahead of you, but where are you on your potential career pathway? Tell me again about what you thought about at the beginning, and let me know if you are still feeling that way, and have things shifted, or where are you?
Yeah, so when I started, my main aim was to be a nurse. I didn't really know any more than I wanted that title of nurse. I didn't know what that meant. I had a sense that there was loads of different possibilities as a nurse. And again, this was all part of my feeling of why I really wanted to do this. Was I set off knowing that there would be some types of nurse that I definitely could not be. For instance, I cannot be a children's nurse because that is just too hard for me. There's too much trauma and emotion involved in that. Every time I hear a child cry, I want to cry. I don't have the strength in me to be a children's nurse. But I also know that there are a whole host of other types of nurses that I can be. And so I knew when I was setting off on this that, and it's always kind of been in the back of my mind that given all of the changes in my previous careers that I've had, I can do that even while I'm still a nurse. I can still change my role as a nurse every 3, 5, whatever number of years if I
Yeah,
want to. And
yeah.
that's a really great thing about nursing. You know, as
Mm-hmm.
soon as you feel like you getting to that point where you're a bit bored with this nursing role, you're not feeling challenged anymore, you feel like you've done everything that you can do in it, that's the point to get another nursing role. And there will be another nursing role out there, because that's the nature of the job, is that there are
Yeah,
hundreds of different types of nurses in hundreds of different settings.
you're
And
so right.
and so coming into it, all I needed to know was that I was going to be a nurse, but which one I wasn't at all sure of. Now, where I am now, I've honed that in a little bit, in the sense that I now feel like I want to progress into a relatively high status level of nursing. I want to get to band 7, and I would like to be a nurse practitioner. I don't particularly want to manage a team. I feel like I've done that, and there are other people better than me capable of managing teams, but I'd love to specialise in something. But that something can be very much an opportunistic decision, because sometimes if you set your heart on a particular specialism, those opportunities may not be around at the time you really need them to be, or they might be in the wrong part of the country. So what I'm thinking is that I will get some general experience on a general ward, quite like the ward that I'm on now, because there's a bit of everything on there, and it will teach me lots of different things, get a couple of years experience of that, take on a lot of additional responsibilities along the way, volunteer myself for all sorts of stuff that the ward needs doing or the hospital needs doing, really build up my CV. And when I'm then looking at what the specialisms are available around and about me, it might be something like Parkinson's, or it might be diabetes, or it might be tissue viability, or it might be Alzheimer's. It could be any number of specialism that will help me progress into those higher roles. But I'll be available for those and open to those ideas.
Love that.
And that will push me forward. See, again, back to the age thing, I can't afford to hang around. You know, I've only got 20 good years ahead of me, so I do need to be quite focused on where I want to get to. So I need to really stay focused on adding as much into my working time as I can to enrich my experience and enrich my to enrich what I can offer back to any new role. So that's my plan, is to really focus on my career for those first 2-3 years, to really turn myself into this very rounded, well experienced nurse, and push myself up that ladder. I know it can be done. I've met sisters who have only been qualified a couple of years, because they've been able to really demonstrate that they've got this real depth of quality to their experience, and that's what I want to do.
I love that. And that is a change from when we first spoke. And I love how, again, you've evidenced all of that. And that is actually quite extraordinary. It really is, because I love what you've just done there, because sometimes you get so used to being on a pathway. A lot of the work that I'm doing at the moment is with healthcare assistants and nurses, and you're thinking about the pathway that they're on. There is an argument, and you've just qualified that argument to say that sometimes if you were so focused on a specialism or whatever, you would miss the opportunity that comes knocking at your door because you were so focused that way. And that's exactly what you're saying, isn't it? So you want to fill yourself up with as much as variety that you can possibly take. I'm just reiterating this back to you. So tell me if I've got this wrong. And with a view to actually progressing as a leader. Moving yourself up into a band 7, as fast tracking as you possibly can, because of the level of commitment and focus that you've got. That will be your driving force. That then allows you to look at the vista around you 360 degrees, and you'll be called to that opportunity because it will resonate with you really well, because you think, oh yes, I hadn't thought about that, or I really like that, or I really enjoyed my time in diabetes, so yes, I'd like to be a specialist in that area. That's wonderful.
But equally, if that opportunity isn't there in diabetes, I don't want to then be saying, well, I've got to wait for it to come. I will be looking at other opportunities, because there are other worthy areas of expertise. You speak to a diabetes nurse and she will be enthusiastic about that. But you speak to a tissue viability nurse and she will say, oh, but my speciality is wonderful. And it's because it is wonderful. They're both wonderful. So I don't feel like it's necessary for me to pin myself down to one specialism and say, oh, that's what I feel really passionate about. Because I think it's possible to be passionate about any of the specialisms, because they're all achieving the same thing in the end, of giving the patients what they need. So that's my end goal, is to just provide that really excellent service to people who really need it. And diabetes, cancer, palliative care, they're all essential to the people who need them. So you still get that same buzz from giving people what they need, without, for me, putting myself in a little box that I can't get out of. If I had 30 years, then maybe it would be different. Maybe I could say, yes, I will wait for an opportunity to come. But you know me, I can be enthusiastic about so many different things. And I did that end of life care project and I loved it, and I wanted to work in end of life care. But I will do another project on something different and I'll love it and I'll want to work there. So I am that butterfly.
I just had this vision of squirrel. But you know what? I think your enthusiasm and your passion is so. I could just so feel it from you. And what that means is that your future employers within the trust or wherever you decide to go, it's kind of like they're going to have to fight over you a little bit, because you aren't setting your sail for one thing. You are open, and it expands you even further, and you really feel that. And then with that comes a confidence and just a lot of positive qualities that make you a very, very viable nurse, you know, for someone to employ. So you're opening, even though you're not looking specifically in one area, you're opening the possibility of so much more to come to you because of how you feel. And in a way, you know, you'd probably end up with 2, 3, maybe 4 different ward managers vying for your attention, for you to join them, because your enthusiasm is such that they just want you on their team. So
and won't that be a great position to be in?
Yes, it will. And yes, that will most definitely happen, because, you know, the other thing that you're doing right now, halfway through, is that you are laying the foundation for that to be the case.
Yeah.
You're projecting forward that this is how you want to operate. You're right in the center, in control, and you're saying, so I'm going to survey the whatever, and I'm going to make decisions that make me feel good and that I know that I can do something with. And that's so powerful, as opposed to someone just going through the motions and, you know, saying to themselves, I don't really know what I want to do yet. I haven't really thought about it. Whatever comes along, I'll, you know, take. That's totally different. And I'm not necessarily judging that, but there will be people, a lot of people in that situation, versus you, that it's just kind of, okay, so you're so much more dynamic because you've got that agility to be able to go in any direction, and it makes you lighter and you can move. You've got momentum with it. It's amazing. Amazing.
It's keeping your reason of why, isn't it? That it's always that question of, why do you want to do this? And at this point in time, it's easy to lose track of why you want to do it. Whereas this was quite an epiphanous moment that I had actually about a month ago when I was on holiday. This is where all of this has come from. Was when I was on holiday, was I actually lost a night of sleep because I was so excited about having this realization that, as you said, I can have that focus of being at the center of what I want to do, and I can have control over it by not prescribing too much. You know, that's the very reason why I can get where I need to be much quicker, by not being so set on one particular thing. And I lost a night's sleep because I was thinking about MSc courses, and I just had this amazing moment of seeing how the next 20 years could just be really, really glorious. And for me, that I need that. And I think you said something about this last time, and I'd like you to expand on it if I'm right in what you were saying. You were saying that the way the human brain works, and we plan things, that does something to our brain. And if that's right, my brain was getting a serious overhaul that night of whatever it was that you're talking about, because I couldn't sleep.
Yeah, absolutely. So on the reverse of that, you could argue that lots of people have lots of very limiting beliefs. You know, you mentioned a couple of them at the very beginning of our call, but, you know, I'm not good enough. Who am I to think I could get that promotion? I'm never going to be that nurse. All those little scripts that you run in your head. But they are limiting beliefs, and they're only beliefs. But the thing is, the brain is such a kind of crazy powerful thing that the brain never understands what's real and what's not. And when you really tap into that makes you realize that you can give the brain a whole load of other information. Like, you can envision the future, just like you've just said. You've just said the next 20 years is going to be joyous. Why is that, Janet? That's because you've actually seen yourself in your uniform doing the things that you've done. You've used all your senses, you've brought them all in, you've made that real in your mind. Not just once, you've probably done it enough that it kept you awake all night. So, you know, you've repeated it, and then the brain goes, oh, okay, so this is what's happening, this is real, this is the way forward. bam, and that's exactly what happens. So the other thing as well is that dopamine, I love dopamine. Dopamine is kind of like our, if you're, it's your motivator, but it's always around pleasure and reward. In both those situations, that works really well for you. But if you set a goal, which you have, what your brain is now doing is doing everything in its power to make sure that that happens, because the dopamine is driving you forward. So when you're searching for an idea or a thought, it will keep you going in the direction that you've already envisaged, because that is that will give you your reward, and it will give you your pleasure. So it's very powerful. So you have literally changed the course of your life because of how you've envisaged your future and where you sit, and the fact that you're in control is beyond powerful. And just watch out, world, Janet is coming, because you're going to have so many choices, and it's going to be a really lovely feeling. And for this point in your life, halfway through your course, imagine that if every other student went through this epiphany that you just have, that they had the future in the palms of their hands. And they could do that. That would so drive them forward now, wouldn't it?
I'm thinking that what you've just said could be a really good way of helping other students that I meet. If I'm right in understanding what you're saying, tell me. If I come across a student who's having that hard day, and which we do, we talk in the lounges and stuff, and on chat rooms and stuff, and you come across those people and they say, I'm really starting to struggle with this, I'm really starting to wonder whether I'm doing the right thing. So a question that it's quite easy to ask is, well, what did you come into this, what was your goal when you came in? What did you plan on doing? What kind of a nurse do you want to be? Where did you see yourself being with this nursing degree? And if they're thinking along those lines, if they're answering the questions and doing that planning thing that I do with a bit of prompting, is that going to give them the dopamine that might then provide them with the energy to get through that bad day and move things forward again?
Yeah, definitely. Yes, absolutely. I mean, visualization, which is what we're kind of talking about, that's the same thing as envisaging, is such a key tool in our toolkit to actually pull out all the time, to be able to use. But actually, when you're sitting in the coffee room with somebody, it's a difficult one, because everybody's thought processes will be around so many different things, and you've kind of got to quickly do a deep dive onto what's the specific thing that's making them feel like it's like a shitty day, excuse my language, but a shitty day. And once you pinpoint that, if you can reframe that to make it, flip it into a positive, then that one thought process then changes their whole state, because you know what I'm saying. Again, it's how there's so many things that go into our brain that we put there that hold us down, keep us stuck, make us feel flat. And it's just having the ability, again, to be a little bit like the backseat driver. You get because it's a lot of it's to do with ego and fear, obviously. So that the ego is keeping you safe and protected. So it's like it'll be your saboteur. It'll be your, oh, don't be doing that now. Who do you think you are? All those voices will be going on your shoulder. But again, you can't necessarily get rid of them. So like you said at the beginning, it's like, okay, I hear you. Thank you. Where's the duct tape? I'm going to put that around you now. You just sit there quietly. I know you're there, but I'm in control here, and I'm going to change that around, because it's not going to freak me out, and it's not going to end my career how I'm feeling right now. It's just, this too will pass. It's a transient thing, but it's just learning to hold on to the bigger moments. I mean, I'm not suggesting that we should all be on the whole time, because we're human, we can't be. But I think you're so right to remind people what it was, where the passion was, what brought you here in the first place. And then to also, if you're ever able to do it in a few minutes, is to help them visualize how things will be in the future for them, to take themselves there so they actually walk in those shoes, they see everybody around them, they have that feeling about wearing the dark blue and all, you know, all that kind of thing. But yeah, it's very powerful, isn't it?
It is, yeah, it is, yeah.
Perfect example of it. My goodness, that's just tremendous. It's so exciting.
Yeah, I think it is, yeah, yeah.
So what do you think you're going to do, you know, next for yourself? Are you just, you know, you haven't necessarily got the pathway that you had before, because as we've been discussing, you want to keep yourself open and available. How do you keep yourself in that state? What works for you?
I guess just day to day, really. I tend to narrow things down a little bit to manageable chunks. We're on placement now, so and I've got half an eye on the next set of assessments because they will come at us very quickly once this placement is done. So I'm already starting to plan a little bit towards just gathering some key bits of information for those, because I don't like being in the situation where I've only got a week to write an assignment. That doesn't work for me. I don't work well under pressure. So I love planning my time. I still have a file of facts which amuses a lot of people, but I just like to have a plan of
Like structure, yeah.
yeah. The biggest part of my week is placement, but I've got odd days off, so I want to use those days off to still be adding something. So some of that adding something is just a little bit of thought around the next set of assessments that are coming up. Just to feel like this isn't the point where there's no momentum, that I'm just stuck in the middle, that I am actually moving towards the end of second year with those thoughts.
Amazing. And
Yeah.
what next big thing are you going to afford yourself as a celebration on your achievements at this point in your training?
Gosh, I haven't thought about that yet. I really haven't thought about that. No, I suppose I should do, really, but I just I kind of get the buzz out of just achieving, you know, and I just for me the sense of reward comes from just knowing that I'm on track, you know, and there will be nice things that we can do towards the end of the year. Again, with the whole of December is study time, so that gives me opportunities to maybe plan something nice in the run up to Christmas. But I'm not there with my thinking yet. At the moment, I'm just taking those dopamine hits from knowing that I'm progressing, that I'm getting better every day with what I do, that each ward is becoming more familiar to me and feels more like home. And that's one of the greatest things that I've had these last 18 months, is just the feeling that I've come home. You know, that's it.
Wonderful, so wonderful. And does that mean that NHSP has dropped for a little while because of your placements and your
Yeah,
level
yeah,
of you know, work that you have to do? Has that
yeah.
gone to the side just for a bit?
Just for these next 4 weeks, I won't take any extra shifts, because we're doing 3 shifts a week on placement, so it's a full
That's
week.
enough. Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, but then when we go back into the study, which we've got another block of study coming up, then there may be opportunities to do a bit more NHSP then. So it's just keeping everything in balance, really. Again, I'm old enough now to realise that I don't have to have a week so full that I'm exhausted. You know, getting balance of having everything, just feeling like you're winning on every level. You know, I'm winning on the placement level, I'm winning on the studying level, I'm winning on the sleep level. You know, and you should never feel like you've got to
Yeah.
sacrifice your health and your well-being and your sleep for the sake of
Goodness
getting
me.
stuff in.
I'm going to high five you, girl, for that. That's an achievement in itself. You know, just putting yourself first and making sure that you're not wearing the busy badge of honour, because that doesn't serve anybody, not yourself, not your patients, nobody. And, you know, this is a big problem that we've got in our culture at the moment. And again, you're a living example of that not being the case, and, you know, achieving and powering forward because of it. Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I just love our conversations.
Oh, well, thank you for letting me talk all about me.
That's exactly what it's all about. It's all about Janet. So that's absolutely wonderful. I can't quite remember exactly what we're going to be talking about next time, but we'll sort that out in the time. But we'll say goodbye now, and thank you again. Have a really, really wonderful week, and thank you for your time. And your hair looks fabulous.
Thank you very much. You take care too.
Okay, bye.
Bye bye.